In today's video, we're going to spend some time talking about the Johnson Amendment. For those of you who don't know, the Johnson Amendment is an amendment to the tax code that took place in 1954 that affected how pastors and churches can go about engaging in political activity. It doesn't exclusively affect churches and pastors, it does affect other types of nonprofits, but churches and pastors are the groups that are the most affected. Not necessarily the most affected, but they're the groups that feel the most affected by this. Over the last couple of years, but especially starting last year, there have been lots of people who've been fear-mongering when it comes to the Johnson Amendment. This probably has to do with the fact that Donald Trump made it not a central part of his campaign, but he made it a consistent campaign promise of his to get rid of it. In today's National Prayer Breakfast, today is February the 2nd, 2017, he didn't talk in detail about it, but he did say again that he was going to repeal it. As someone who has spent a good amount of time writing and talking about this issue, I think it's important that people be educated. So the Johnson Amendment does not prohibit churches and pastors from engaging in political activity. It doesn't even really prohibit them from engaging in partisan political activity, but it does limit the scopes of what they can do. And it has a punishment. If you do not listen to the Johnson Amendment, you are theoretically supposed to be stripped of your tax-exempt status. This doesn't always work. Lots of times it's just not enforced, but that is one of the consequences and the main consequence that will happen to churches, and it's happened in the past. It's not like this has never occurred before, but by and large, there are plenty of churches who blatantly ignore the Johnson Amendment and continue to remain tax exempt. Now, whether or not this is a good thing is not the purpose of this discussion. I don't think it's a good thing, but that's largely a matter of opinion. Churches can engage in lots of nonpartisan political activity. The basic examples of this are they can host candidates and issue forums, assuming they invite all viable candidates and allow them all to speak. They can conduct nonpartisan voter registration drives. They can distribute voter education material. They can educate members about legislation, which is one of the big ones. They can talk about politics. This is one of the things that Donald Trump has been saying that they can't do. It's not true. If you talk about legislation, you are talking politics. They can also directly lobby for legislation and even fund lobbying activities. Now, what churches can't do is they can't endorse candidates directly. They can't contribute to candidates' campaigns or political committees, which is one of the big ones. And they can't distribute materials that clearly favor candidates or political parties. Now, what pastors can do is they can endorse candidates in their capacity as private individuals. They can participate in political committees, provided those political committees are independent of the church, and they can lobby for legislation in their private capacity. What they can't do is endorse specific candidates directly from the pulpit or as the church. These are all things that are very important for people to know. There's this idea out there that if a pastor talks politics, they're going to face some sort of punishment. That's not true. What they can't do is endorse specific candidates. I know that to some people that's frustrating, and it seems like an encroachment on their freedom of speech, but there are lots of people who don't think that it is. Part of the reason that this is that if churches want to do these things, they can, but they'll have to pay taxes. To a lot of people, this seems fair. Whether people like it or not, that seems to be the way that it should be to lots of people. This is one of the very few examples of a separation of church and state in legislation. I think it's important that people not fearmonger, because this seems like a scary topic to lots of evangelicals for some reason. I don't really understand why, but it just does. I hope that this was educational to you. I'll be providing links in the description down below. If you like what you saw, feel free to comment, feel free to like the video, and of course to subscribe. I hope you guys have a great day.